So, good morning, everybody. Thank you all that you are here to join our session on planting the seed, the importance of early forest education at the primary and secondary level to inspire young minds. A very important topic, and we had a really great discussion yesterday in the first breakout session with this topic with other people. So we are looking forward to your input today and for a fruitful discussion. My name is Christoph Ullmann. I'm Managing Director of the German Association for the Protection of Forests and Woodlands. We are a small NGO in Germany. We are focusing on forest education and forest protection. So I'm really happy that I can be your host today for this meeting. And we have a very interesting program for you today. And we will have fantastic speakers and great discussions. So I wish us a wonderful 1.5 hours together with us all. And I just for the start, you know, all these buttons at the bottom of Zoom. So if you are happy to be here and like to join, so we can sort of, you can use the emojis and everything as well, so that everybody can see a little bit of your reactions and everything. So let's do probably a little round so that you all get familiar with this. So then we actually, to get to know you all a little bit better, we decided to get some short Slido questions to enter the discussion and enter the session. So you can find it either now on the screen or in the chat on the side. We post a lot of things in the chat on the side, which are important for the discussions and things like this. As you can see, you find already there the call to action, which was some sort of output of the discussions yesterday. You can sort of I like to encourage you to check this out and use this link to contribute to this call to action. So as you can see, we have the link for the Slido, and you can click onto it, and then you can, Teresa Löffler is sharing the screen, and we want to know where you come from. What's the sector you come from? Is it science, education, government, non-governmental organization, international organizations? So please feel free and help us to get to know the group.
Sorry, Christoph, it says voting closed. We can't participate.
Oh. Now it's open.
Please try again.
Now it's open. And now we see that the results are coming in. So we have a lot of international organizations here. We have people from education, experts from the government, experts from non-governmental organizations, and scientists. And so far, no students, but this looks very good. And there are still results coming in. So, well, an international crowd, as you can expect for an international conference, and we're looking forward for all your expertise in the discussion later. So let's continue to the next question. For Slido, and so what does forest education mean to you in one word? So we will see a cloud of words and coming in, and I hope we will have some nice answers. So we have sustainability, future, as more people have mentioned it. We have seed, creativity, nature, value forests for life, understanding, actual experience, an investment to future. Well, this looks all really well, and these are all very important words or meanings when it comes to forest education. So while the words are popping up, I will sort of set the scene for today's discussion. The purpose of today's session is to explore why in most regions, primary and secondary schools are not efficiently educating students about forests and trees or motivating them to later pursue forest-related studies and careers. That is the question we want to follow the next 1.5 hours, and I'm really looking forward to our experts that will give us small input presentations so that we can sort of have a little start for the discussion later on. While we see all the presentations, you're welcome to chat in the chat, ask questions or contribute to what the audience are saying. You're all experts in this field, so please be free to mention your thoughts as well so that we can all contribute to that. And but we will have an open discussion later on as well, so you can be then you are welcome to join this discussion then as well. So for the start, so we have 16 words in our question, and this is it looks similar to the yesterday, but we have new words there as well. So this is something we have to save because this is good what we can have for later. So we start with our first speaker. This is Bernard Combe. He's program specialist from UNESCO for education for sustainable development, learning objectives and their importance for the SDGs, especially for the SDG 15, life on land. Bernard will talk about using education for sustainable development in learning for the 17 SDGs and consequently contributing to the achievement of the SDGs, highlighting some learning objectives, topics and activities for SDG 15, life on land. Welcome, Bernard. Thank you that you are here again, and we are looking forward to your contribution.
Good morning, everyone. So I'm Bernard from UNESCO, from the Education for Sustainable Development section. And what I want to do is kind of paint the overall frame in which forest education or nature education takes place, and highlight it in the context of the frame that frames all our actions, the SDGs, the 17 SDGs. Unfortunately, forests do not have their standalone SDGs. They are in SDG 15. Next. When the SDGs were adopted, 2 years later, the UN General Assembly passed a resolution saying that education for sustainable development was a key enabler for all 17 SDGs. When that resolution was passed, our member states asked us, saying, well, we need technical support. We need to figure out what does actually mean. How do you address the 17 SDGs through education? So we worked with the University of Vecta in Germany to develop some guidelines on learning objectives for all 17 SDGs, every single one of them. This publication was reviewed by experts in the field of every single one of these SDGs. And we have it in several languages. If you do not see your native language on the screen there, you can always offer to translate it. And once we issued it and it started being used, we realized that it wasn't enough. So we developed a web platform with resources for educators for early childhood, primary, secondary, and out of school activities, proposing different resources to be used. Next. The idea behind this guidance material was to provide some orientation on how to use education for sustainability in learning, teaching about, for the SDGs, outlining some learning objective and proposing or some selected activities for each of the SDGs, but also to provide some guidance on for educators and others to use these objectives in developing some lesson plans, but also more importantly, to develop every single learner's capacity to address these SDGs. Next. And key to that is the idea of promoting some competences, key competences for us. System thinking, you need to think of the wider system in which forests are contextualized. The idea of thinking strategically, the idea of collaboration. We have to work together on these issues. And in terms of forest, we need to bring in all sectors concerned by forest into teaching and learning and capacity building. Critical thinking, of course. One of the important one is also self-awareness, your own awareness of how you feel when you're in a forest or about a forest, or maybe you've never seen a forest. So to think of all these competencies. Next. We worked on 3 key domains for us. The cognitive domain, so that's the knowledge, the facts and figures, let's say on forest. The social emotional domain, because for anything we learn, we teach, there's this emotion that we have, our connection with nature, our connection with forest. And then the last one, behavioral domain, because we need to change the way we do things, we need to change the way we learn about things, so needing to change. Next. So this is just a snapshot of one of the pages, which is showing you some learning objectives. So in terms of cognitive, it would be, your basic ecology course, or your basic introduction to the threats to forests, so the issue of deforestation. In terms of emotional, social learning, it's the issue of connecting, of feeling empathy for other things, other people. Behavioral is learning to work with others, learning to talk to policymakers, because they are the ones who decide, in a way, how some of our forests are run and what we can do with them. Next. We also suggest some possible topics. So threat to biodiversity. So what causes deforestation? Again, the issue of connecting to nature. In terms of methods, it's the idea of, in particular, a very important one that we think is inquiry action-based actions, and also the idea of celebrating. We need to celebrate. We need to use these international days purposefully to celebrate and to do things together. Next. All that is in the context of pushing the idea of introducing environmental issues into policies and programs, into textbooks. Textbooks do not talk enough about nature, environment, and forests. Teacher education, the idea of making a forest education project, the project of a whole school. Next. This is in the broad context. We have just launched a new framework for the next 10 years on education for sustainability, where we're pushing the need to rethink what, where, and how we learn, so that we can answer or respond to what the UN Secretary General said about we are in a battle for our lives, but it is a battle we can win if we change the way we do things. We learn, we teach, we recognize the importance of forest. Next. Yeah, so clearly the time to learn and act.
The time,
yeah, nearly there. The time is right now to learn and act for our planet. It's now. It's not, we can't wait. We have to do it now. So I invite you to join our Learn for Our Planet campaign, to share your passion for forests, to bring in other people to tell us why we should learn for our planet. Also to take a look, we have a report on Learn for Our Planet, which shows the extent to which environmental issues are integrated into education. Just to conclude, next, I'm listing a number of resources that you can consult later on. So just to finish, thank you for listening. Just remember, the time is now. We have to do things now. We have to think more widely about forest, and it cannot be a forgotten issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Bernard, for your speak. We have, as you have seen probably on the slide, Theresa Löffler has shared the bio of Bernard. So if you want to get to know him a little bit closer and his career, then you can check on the site and you will find more information about Bernard. And so we will do that with all the other speakers as well. So we can continue to our next speaker, who is Dr. Siima Bakengesa. She's Director of Forestry Production Research at the Tanzanian Forest Research Institute, and she's also supporting an FAO forest education project in Tanzania. She will talk about the German-funded FAO project's Forest for a Sustainable Future, Educating Children. The project is developing educational content with the Ministry of Natural Resources and Tourism of the Government of Tanzania and the German Nature Conservation Association Schutzgemeinschaft Deutscher Wald, which I'm working for. And she will guide us through some key aspects of this very interesting project and its implementation. Hello, Siima.
Hello, Christoph.
Hello.
Good morning, everyone. Yes, I'm Siima, as Christopher said. I'm very much pleased to be with you today. And I'm going to talk about the Forest for Sustainable for Educating Children, the experience of FAO Forest Educating Project in Tanzania. And this project is going to give us lessons which are going to be rolled out to Philippines. I'm presenting on behalf of the government of Tanzania, Mr. Wanjara Ngaya. Next. Yeah, this German-funded project aims to increase forest literacy and the need to manage forest sustainably among children aged 9 to 12 in Tanzania. Specifically, the project is developing 3 interactive learning modules based on experiential and forest-based learning with the government of Tanzania and German Nature Conservation Association, of which we are very much grateful for your support. I need to take you to the process which we are undertaking in developing modules for forestry. First of all, we did need assessment, the focus group discussions, and the pedagogical instruments, whereby we met with a group of teachers and officials from the Ministry of Education, Ministry of Natural Resources and Tourism, and local and central government to discuss about the need assessment. And then we did the second one in Dar es Salaam, whereby we invited 21 primary schools and teachers to provide practical pedagogical input from teachers' perspective. This was very much an important aspect when designing the modules. Then we did the pre-testing and the module development and the design, pre-stakeholder consultation and national stakeholders consultations. Next. Yeah, this is how we did it. The pre-testing involving the stakeholders I told you about, the teachers, the local government, and the stakeholders associated with the forest education in Tanzania. Next. Yeah, our much focus is on the teaching methodology, which is on basically on hands-on and the active lessons, the match-age classrooms, group work. We allow children to child teaching and problem solving, gaming, and role-playing and presentation, which are based on the forest pedagogy inspired by the Montessori and the Pestalozzi teaching methodologies, which promote experiential and interactive and participatory learning. The major aim here is to develop the child-centered lesson modules that educate through practical real-life experience and encourage children to find their own answers through scientific observation. Next. Yeah, as you can see, we did the pre-pilot testing with 500 students in Dar es Salaam city to inspire the children about the forest. Next. Here you can see when we are developing this module, students are encouraged to draw different wood products they can get from the forest. And most of the time, these lessons are done outside the classes. Next. Yeah, here you can see the pre-piloting of photosynthesis. This girl is scaling glucose to show how photosynthesis is being done in the plants. Next. You can see here, we also depicted the life of bees in a colony, whereby you see the queen, the bees working in the colony, and in this way, our students are inspired about the real life of bees in a colony. Next. Now I'd like to share with you a video, which is almost 1.5 minutes, for you to be engaged and be able feeling how we can inspire young minds to love the forest sector and be the protective of the nature. Please enjoy this video. you very much for sharing this video. And in my concluding remarks, I'd like to thank you very much. The last slide, please. The last slide, please. Teresa, are you there?
Yes, give me 1 second, it's coming.
Okay. Yeah, I like
Perfect.
to, yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. I like to say that let us invest in the young minds so that they're inspired by the forest and they'll take this forest up and they conserve our nature. And I'd like to thank you very much for the support given to the government of Tanzania, and we hope the lessons learned will help also the government of Philippines to take up this forest education modules for young minds. Thank you very much for having me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Siima, for your interesting presentation. We will come back to you later on with some questions and for start of the discussion. And so thank you for now.
Thank you very much.
We will continue to our next speaker. Her name is Angelica Dao, and she's actually the best example how we can inspire young minds and what can be the result of all this and why it's so important. Angelica Dao, she's was a Kids to Forest participant, and she's now serving the Department of Environment and Natural Resources at the provincial level of Laguna as a protected area ranger, and she will share her experience as a participant in this project and tell us how the project shaped her career path and inspired her to become a forester. So welcome, Angelica.
Good morning, everyone. So I will share to you my experience in my journey in Kids to Forest program and how it influenced my to where I am right now. So Kids to Forest, growing a seed in the heart and minds of children. Good day, everyone. I'm Angelica Aidao, 22 years old, a graduate of Bachelor of Science in Forestry, a lady forester, and a proud Kids to Forest Earth ambassador. My earnest interest in forest started when I joined the Kids to Forest. Please go back to the other slide, first slide. Yeah. My earnest interest in forest started when I joined the FAO assisted Kids to Forest program and became a Kid Earth ambassador in 2012. Can you imagine that it's exactly 9 years ago and I was just 13 years old then? Very young and has never been detached from my parents' wing from decisions and action. But the Kids to Forest gave me the opportunity to try to be a little independent and be able to leap and soar high. Something that my parents and myself were happy and proud about. Next, please. Before joining this program, I had a very simple understanding about forest. Maybe because forest is an everyday sight for me during my pre-elementary years. We used to live in the mountainous portion of the University of the Philippines campus on what the general public call Forestry, because I assume people refer to it as such because it is where the College of Forestry is located and an entrance to the thickly forested area of Mount Makiling. Hence, those days, forestry for me is my residence, my playground, and our family's source of food. Moving resident to the urban area made a big difference to my everyday life. Lessons in primary and secondary school became general, based on books but very limited books, and done in our small school laboratories. I don't recall any books, classroom discussion that centered on forest trees, and forest communities. That is why my childhood perspective about forests did not expand and did not deepen. Next slide, please. Until Yakap Kalikasan, an FAO-assisted Kids to Forest program allowed us to experience the beauty and benefits of the forest inside the biggest nature laboratory, and that is the forest. Next. The K2F program brought back my interest on forest because I was amazed by how the Kids to Forest was designed by our facilitators. Every batch has a one-day introductory interactive session in school. We called it School Caravan. And more exciting portion are the 2 to 3 days forest exposure and more exciting portion are the follow-up activities rather. I did not notice that our minds were being fed with this various information about forest because we were just playing games, going around different parts of the forest, collecting interesting things, also sing, dance, and doing some cheerful things. But and also the follow-up activities of promoting to the general public a deeper love and attention to the environment, like we were real ambassadors, develop in me more positive habits, values, and self-confidence. Next slide, please. The K2F program steered up my young mind to the truth that the forest and the life forms here are connected with those in the lowlands and the seas. I was always made to believe that it is wrong to cut trees because it will cause so much disaster. But K2F showed me the reality that it's good and therefore it's okay to harvest trees for as long as it is done according to the law and replanting is a responsible act. Next slide, please. K2F confirmed my notion that many elements of the forest start from the tiniest insect to the longest uh, creeping animals, and from the largest flower to the old living trees, make this overloaded ecosystem the most fascinating place on earth. Thus make Bachelor of Science in Forestry the most exciting course too. My childhood dream was to become a nurse to take care of sick people. But K2F made me realize in the process that to be a forester is like a nurse, like wearing a hero's cape in protecting, conserving, and helping manage the very lungs of Mother Earth. Next slide. I can hear the future generation say, we owe this to our environment heroes, one of whom is the foresters. That is why I choose to take BS Forestry, a course that is never outdated, fits well with Millennial and Generation Z, and one that's for both men and women. Next slide. So 9 years after my K2F exposure, here I am, a full-fledged forester working with the Department of Environment and Natural Resources and continuing my advocacy for sustainable forest by serving as a forest patrol of one of the most beautiful and culturally renowned forest protected areas in the country. So I, Angelica Aidao, a Filipino forester, I raised the banner of Kids to Forest that promotes planting the seed of hope for a better and healthier Mother Earth in the heart and minds of young girls and boys. Thank you and mabuhay po tayong lahat. Next po.
Thank you very much, Angelica. That was really inspiring. I don't know if we have a bio of you for the chat. We haven't seen one yet, so probably there is none. But if we have it, we please share it on the chat, and so you can all see her. Here we go.
Yes.
We have it. Thank you, Teresa. So we continue with our next speaker, which is Cindy Lee Cloete. She's leave national operator in South Africa and general manager of the schools and youth unit at VISA, and she will talk about the Foundation for Environmental Education's Learning About Forests program and some of the impact that this special program has had specifically in South Africa. Welcome, Cindy.
Thank you, Christoph. I was just thinking we need to organize another international platform like this for students like Angelica, who's been part of forest education programs, and to show the real impact. Yeah. So maybe us as educators need to step aside and actually give the learners an opportunity every once in a while. Yes, that was really inspiring. Thank you so much for the opportunity. My name is Cindy, and I'm based in Johannesburg, South Africa. And today I represent two organizations, the Foundation for Environmental Education as well, that's based in Denmark, and the international manager for the Learning About Forests program. Next slide, please. So the Learning About Forests program is managed by the Foundation for Environmental Education and is hosted across a number of countries across the world, and it particularly focuses on using nature as a classroom across our different networks. Next slide, please. So really the Learning About Forest program also is a network of like-minded people across different countries. The Foundation for Environmental Education is one of the largest environmental education organizations and networks across the world. And particularly we look at hands-on, action-based positive global impact for sustainable development. Our network basically reaches over 79 countries, and we have over 100 member organizations worldwide. And that's really impactful because that basically creates an opportunity for sharing of learning and experiences across the global north and the global south. The Foundation for Environmental Education has 5 environmental education programs, one of them which is the Learning About Forest program. Partnerships are very important, and hence why today I represent 2 organizations. And the organization that I work for in South Africa is called the Wildlife and Environment Society of South Africa. We are a 95-year-old organization, and by joining the Foundation for Environmental Education, WESA basically made the foundation an international organization, with WESA being the first country, or South Africa being the first country outside of Europe that joined the network, and also opening up the door for other countries outside of Europe to join this global network. Through our work, we basically reach over 100 million learners in South Africa annually through our Education for Sustainable Development programs. Next slide, please. So the Learning About Forest program and forest education particularly is an innovative international program that encourages learners and communities to take ownership of creating healthy surroundings by engaging with their local forests and planting indigenous trees. Through a project-based learning and systems thinking approach, our LEAF champions develop a deeper understanding of the relationship between people and nature, but also looking at culture, the economic and the social functions and benefits that our forests and biodiversity can offer us. Next slide, please. Next slide. So through the LEAF program and through forest education, just back one more. Thank you. So through the program, we want to bring children closer to the forest and for them to enjoy that understanding of the natural world and its functions. So through the program and the activities that we run across the countries that implement this program, we want to inspire learners to get to know nature and to get to know forests, to basically create a reconnection with learners in urban areas and natural areas again, but also to inspire action. So now that we know our forests, now that we know nature, how do we as active citizens basically create projects in our schools, in our communities, for us to be able to learn more about forests and the nature that basically surrounds us. Next slide, please. The outcomes and objectives, also looking at, how can we grow cognitively, socio-emotionally, and behaviorally through our forest education, and some of the skills and the competencies that the learners gain through joining our Learning About Forest program is leadership skills. We also look at things like reducing depression in learners, particularly in this time with COVID-19, where we've been cooped up in our houses, that the experience of going into an outdoor classroom really looks at how do we basically reduce anxiety amongst children specifically? How do we stimulate minds through hands-on activities? And how do we basically create healthy habits through outdoor education? And also looking at how can we achieve or create better academic achievement through an out-of-the-box learning experience. Next slide, please. So the LEAF program has a really, really nice structured 6-step process or plan or framework that basically guides schools to create learning about forest activities in schools. So the school basically look at a holistic approach where they set up what we call a forest committee, And this forest cycle basically then helps them to ensure holistic learning and a deeper understanding. So looking at researching areas in or specific threats to our forests or threats to our biodiversity, coming up with an action plan to basically mitigate those threats, and then to implement it at the school level and in the community level. Next slide, please. We are currently busy, like I said, the LEAF program is an international program, and we are currently busy compiling a publication that will showcase and promote outdoor education across different countries and how the specific learning about forest program is implemented in the different countries that it's situated in. Next slide, please. So in South Africa particularly, we do not have a lot of natural forests, but South Africa is one of the most biodiverse countries in the world. And so what we've done is basically looked at how do we, through the Learning About Forest program, bring nature back to schools. So if kids and learners cannot go to nature, how do we basically bring nature to schools? And we've been doing that through creating what we call biodiversity indigenous gardens, which basically becomes an active outdoor classroom that the schools, the teachers, and the communities can use. These biodiversity classrooms are basically planted through indigenous native plants in the area that the school is situated in. We've also taken an approach to use science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics as an approach for learners to learn about forests and the biodiversity around them. These biodiversity classrooms then enable a reconnection with our natural surroundings through learning about hands-on activities and forest excursions, or in South Africa, specifically the case where we go to nature reserves that are not specifically forests, but basically the natural surroundings and the indigenous biodiversity in South Africa. And this basically inspires an appreciation for our forests, as well as nurturing a deeper understanding, and also instilling a need to protect and to love our forests and our biodiversity. So one of the success stories in South Africa, also working in primary and secondary schools, is the impact that specifically the Learning About Forests program has with children with disabilities, for them to be able to reconnect with each other and reconnect with their natural surroundings, and for them to basically create a different way of learning at their particular school. So each of the schools can also select a variety of themes that they can work with. We have themes like forests and biodiversity, forests and products, forest and climate, and forest and community, where we look at the different aspects of forest, the social component, the ecological component, but also the cultural components and the economic components of the forest and what they bring to us. Next slide, please. Some of the other examples in some of the other countries that we've had is in Belgium. They basically created what we call a nesting forest, where students can basically play and relax within the forest, and basically creating a deeper respect for the human-nature relationship. In Malta, they've basically rewilded a perimeter of a nature park, so that students can and these plants that were planted were basically grown by the students themselves. And in Mexico, we looked at a reforestation project to deal with water scarcity as an example. Next slide, please. So that's the Learning About Forests program. Like I said, it's internationally managed by the Foundation for Environmental Education, and you can get more information on the project. You can, if there's countries here listening in today, you can also join the Learning About Forests program and bring this exciting program to your country. Just get in touch with our very competent team at the Foundation for Environmental Education through those platforms. Next slide, please. Thank you very much for the opportunity, and I'm excited to see what else we get to learn through the conference today. Thanks, Christoph.
Thank you very much, Cindy, for this interesting contribution to our session today. And we will come back later to you with some questions. So, and if you have questions, please sort of assemble them, and then we will have the chance later to ask these questions to our speakers. So the next one is Boštjan Heren. He's from the Slovenian Forest Service. He works for the Slovenian Forest Service as a forestry engineer. He's leader of the Forest Pedagogic Group of the SFS communication team. He will present the forestry pedagogic as a tool for forest education, using as an example the Slovenian Forest Service as a public institution funded by the state budget, and we are looking forward to your presentation. Welcome, Boštjan.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Hope we hear each other. Once again, a very great good morning from Celje, Slovenia, the urban forest here in Slovenia. I'm going to present that our case in Slovenia Forest Service, which is a public service funded by the government, and maybe that's why it's a little bit easier because of that. Next slide, please. The country I come from is a kind of a green dot here on the Mother Earth. It is called Slovenia, the only country in the world with the word love in its name. Next, please. It is 2 million hectares in size with very diverse landscape, from alpine, Pannonic, Dinaric to the Mediterranean, and has a population of 2 million. Next, please. 58% of Slovenia is covered by forests, so it ranks third in the EU. It's the shape of a hand. Next, please. So the people of Slovenia, it's like chicken to that hen. Next, please. Well, I'm a forest engineer and forest pedagogue at Slovenia Forest Service, which is a public institution established by the Republic of Slovenia, which performs public forestry service in all Slovenian forests. Next. At the state level, the Slovenia Forest is organized with its central unit in Ljubljana, in the middle of Slovenia. This is the capital. At the regional level is 14 regional units, and at local level into 69 local units and 391 forest districts. I'm a district forester. Slovenia Forest Service also comprises 10 hunting reserves with special purpose, with approximately 750 employees, mainly forest engineers. The Slovenia Forest Service is the largest forest institution in Slovenia and forestry institution of European importance. Next, please. We operate by the principles of the Slovenia Forestry School, planning and monitoring the implementation of sustainability, close to nature, and multifunctional forest management. Next. Our motto is preservation and close to nature development of Slovenian forests and of all their functions for their sustainable and good management and use, as well as nature conservation in forest space for the good of present and future generations. Next. In 2019, the Slovenia Forest Service conducted 673 activities for popularization of forest and forestry, reaching approximately 350,000 people. The main events take place on the International Day of Forest in cooperation with FAO, Earth Day, and during the Slovenia Forest Week, which has been taking place for over 50 years. Education about forest and forestry is an important task of the Slovenia Forest Service. The goal of our activities with kindergarten and school children is to inspire a responsible and sustainable attitude to forest and forest ecosystems, to explain the importance and value of forests to society, and to learn about forests in a natural environment in forests. Next, please. Slovenia Forest Service foresters with an affinity to forest pedagogy are trained and encouraged to conduct activities with school children, such as workshops, field trips, etc. These activities are planned annually and funded through the Public Forestry Service. In 2019, the Slovenian Forestry Service involved over 15,000 children in 414 activities organized by foresters all across Slovenia, mostly in cooperation with local schools and kindergartens. In 2020 and 2021, we have taken steps to reach teachers and children through digital media due to COVID-19, of course. Next, please. In 2019, the Handbook for Learning and Play in the Forest was published by the Slovenia Forestry Institute. It is available online. I'm going to post it in the chat so you can all download it if you want to. Well, thank you for your attention. That was my 5 minutes, and I hope for more questions in further discussion. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Boštjan, very, very much for your contribution. And next time I meet someone from Slovenia, I will ask about this chicken thing.
Okay, okay.
And see what they say.
All right.
Okay, so thank you very much to all the speakers so far. And we will now continue with our Q&A. So if I will ask, we've prepared a Slido presentation again, or a Slido a questionnaire. So if we ask the questions to the speakers, you're welcome to answer these questions as well, and you can add what you think to these questions on Slido. So please refer to the chat. Teresa has just shared the app, the Slido app again, and you are welcome to join our discussion there before we come to the open discussion at the end. So the first question goes to Bernard. How can forest education be better incorporated at the primary and secondary level in a way that it's meaningful and relevant to the local context?
Well, we've already had a few answers from the various presenters. It has to be hands-on, action-oriented. Basically, the forest has to be used as a textbook. The problem we see in too many countries is that you have a school next to a forest, and the students are never taken to that forest across the street. They're told about all kinds of forests around the world, but they never go to the forest that's next to their school. I'll just, I think the one who said it the best is actually my patron saint, Saint Bernard of Clairvaux. He was the creator of the Cistercian order, monks that went and built monasteries, usually in the middle of forests. And he said, "You will find more in forest than in books. Trees and rocks will teach you things no master will tell you." Yeah, clearly, if you want to know, to learn about the forest, you actually have to go see the forest. You have to touch the trees. You have to see all the different types of trees, and learn why you should grow these here or replant those there. So clearly, the best way is to make it fun, interesting, to take if you're a teacher, take your students out to the forest. And if you live in a city, it can just be to a park that have trees. It doesn't have to be a huge forest. So that's in a way, my quick answer to that.
Yes, thank you very much, Bernard. I think it's always, this is always the very hardest discussion. How do we bring the people from the cities to the forest, and how can we do that easily? But your suggestion with the parks is something that I really think should be carried out everywhere. So I have the same question to Siima. How can forest education be better incorporated at the primary and secondary level in a way that it's meaningful and relevant to the school and the local context, Siima? The word is yours.
Thank you, Christoph. I'd like to start by saying that we needed to acknowledge the importance of forests, and these forests are life. And from the statistics, we know that almost 1% of this world is covered by forestry. And in Tanzania, we are talking about 55% of forest cover. This provides us with a lot of benefits we get from life. We get clean air, we get water for irrigation for domestic use. We get a lot of food from the forest, and also provide the recreational properties. So we need really to find ways on how best we can forest education can be better incorporated. As from the experience here in Tanzania, what we did is to try to find out what are the relevant topics to be taught to the students, engage the relevant authorities, the policymakers, and develop in a collaboration with the students and their teachers, relevant modules which they can support, focusing on the hands-on, interactive processes, and then creating like forest days at the schools, forest clubs, involving students in celebrating international and local days for forest. This will promote young minds to better understand and really take care of the forest for the benefit of the present and the future generation. So having celebrations days, forest clubs, identifying champions who are taking care of the trees and the forestry, involving students in developing different forest products could help the forest education be better incorporated in your primary and secondary schools. So this is my contribution, is I concur with the other previous speakers on the methodology to be incorporated. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Siima. As we can see, there are answers coming in on the Slido as well, the important role of the teachers, or put it in a lifelong learning perspective and take it beyond the classroom into the communities and out into the nature. So please add your thoughts and ideas to our Slido protocol, or how we say, so that we can sort of take this with us to future discussions. So our next question goes to Angelica. How can early forest education be used to inspire future generations of foresters?
So I can be a good example of this. Before, I had a different dream before I choose to be a forester. And like other children in my generation, we are more engaged in digital technologies. That's why we are seldom go out and feel the nature. Many kids sleep comfortably in wooden beds, play their rubber bands, and eat their food with honey and berries. But I'm pretty sure most of these kids don't know how Nara and rubber tree looks like, and how these honeys and berries were collected by forest communities in the wilds. So exposing children to the real natural world, including the forest, is a good way to inspire them to become even more a lover of Mother Earth and to become a future foresters. That's all.
Okay, thank you very much. And there are also answers coming in. Tell us about the different job opportunities in forests in the programs. So please free to add things there. So we come to Cindy for the next question. Where are the gaps in primary and secondary forest education?
Thank you, Christoph. Some of the other speakers have already mentioned, and the participants in the chat spoke about curriculum. And in South Africa, the policy and the curriculum statement is very rigid, and that kind of like boxes teachers in to think more creatively and bring components like environmental education and particularly forest education into the curriculum. So if we can, one of the big gaps is the fact that forest education is not incorporated into the curriculum statements, specifically in South Africa. The previous speaker also spoke about, you know, the generation, today's generations being more technologically inclined and not getting out into our nature and forests in particular, but also how there's a disconnect from their everyday users, like for example, the berries that they eat, the honey that they get, the bed that they sleep on, and where that comes from. So a little bit of a disconnect between our everyday lives and what we use and how the forest basically complements that. A third big gap, particularly for NGOs, is obviously funding to take forest education programs to primary and secondary education. So a huge need and a huge gap is funding to basically enable these kind of programs at the school level. And then continued and sustained citizen action. So learning about forests should not just be a once-off program or when it's International Day of Forests, but it should be something that's incorporated into the curriculum every day, so that learners can basically see the connection of their everyday lives and the importance that forests play with that. Thanks, Christoph.
Thank you very much. So there are answers coming in as well. So teachers themselves are not orientated about forests, very little in teachers education, need more fun resources, access to resources, no adequate programs that fit to the school. So a lot of input from your side, and thank you very much for this so far. So we come to our last question to Boštjan before we open the floor to you. Boštjan, where have there been successful efforts to fill these gaps we were just talking about?
Yeah, we have, as I told you, and you mentioned also, we are, I guess, pretty lucky because we are funded by the state since we are on a state budget, and besides regular forestry works such as managing and let's say managing with forest, we are also dealing with the public, especially with kids. And we developed a few programs, for example, for kindergarten children, kids, we developed Playful Forest program. For the primary school, we developed another one program, Forest is a Wisdom. And also for the, let's say, high school kids, we developed a program, Urban Forest as an Ecosystem. So through those programs, we invite kids and of course also parents. We, in that early stage, we would like to encourage kids with parents and of course teachers with foresters to come, to invite them and to come to the forest. We all know that kids would like to play in the forest, and this is the primary role, to play, to invite them in the forest, to get to know with the forest, with the trees, shrubs, bugs, and so on. So they won't afraid of forest, because later on they will find the forest, as Chloe said, kind of a forest laboratory, and so on. So I think those programs can help kids through the later stages to become citizens who will draw, let's say, right decisions, because those kids are going to be my future prime minister, perhaps, or president of Slovenia. I mean, those kids will be decision makers. I mean, and this is what we want, that every kid goes into the forest with the forester at least once in that education period. So that, I think it is my answer to that question. So I'm looking forward to discuss about that, and maybe you also can find me by email, and I will answer and help as I can. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Boštjan. I think it's very important what you've said, that we have to continue working, that children are coming to the forest, are coming to our programs. Then even like, let's say once a year, probably that would even be better, that you have the continuous programs. So now we are, I like to thank all the speakers for answering their questions, but now it's up to you. All the participants, please raise your hand and your questions to one speaker or to the audience, or how you would like it. We have an open discussion now, so please be free to start with your questions. And if you want to say something, please just like raise your hand with the function on the bottom. It says reactions, and there you can find raise your hand, and then we start with your question.
Can I make a comment, please?
Yes, please, Boštjan.
Well, the thing also is that public schools has that state curriculum, right?
Yeah.
And they cannot afford to come to different, let's say, excursions. So in our case is that they're really limited to go outside to the forest. So they have to plan really well. So that is, let's say, a minus in that planning to come to the forest. So it's really important that we encourage parents to bring kids into the forest.
Thank you. I think that's always a big problem, the limitation of time in the schools. Yes. So that's why we demand in all our programs, we demand actually one day in the school year for things like this, one day for forest or one day for outside school education, so that people, they don't need to come to the forest. Well, it would be nice, but there are other outside school education fields as well. It could be agriculture, it could be other things, but you need a special day for that, because otherwise it won't fit into the school curricula. And that's always the problem, to fit all these programs into like the limited time you have. You just have 2 hours, or probably if you have, it's better in primary school, but I mean, starting at secondary level, it's so difficult.
So that's why I think, and I really congratulate to all NGOs that they make an effort to deal with, let's say, forest pedagogy or education, because this is non-formal. What I'm talking, maybe more is a formal, informal education, but NGOs, they are doing their best as they can with small amount of funds.
Yeah,
that's a problem.
Yeah, exactly. Funding is always the same problem as well. But Cindy is.
But enthusiasm will win.
Cindy, how is it? Do you have an overview about like your colleagues in other countries? How do they sort of get their programs in the schools, or is it more like a voluntary thing after school?
Yeah, I can speak, Christoph, both from a South African perspective, but also from the other LEAF colleagues. So for us, we try and complement and support the school curriculum, because once it becomes an after hours or an extracurricular thing, teachers are hesitant to do it, because like you said earlier, the time that they have for specific formal teaching then becomes encroached on. So we really try to complement the school curriculum through the Learning About Forest program. And just as an example, when I was in school, and I learned about forest in the curriculum, I always learned about forest in another country. That where it snows, you know, so, and it doesn't snow in South Africa. We don't really have huge redwood forests, etc. And so that's also where we then decided to contextualize the learning about forest program in South Africa, to learn about the South African ecosystems and the South African forests. So that's something that was also a huge gap, and that through this program we could basically fill. And in terms of funding, particularly for the other countries, so like Bosnia, some of the other countries are also state funded, but most of them are NGOs bringing the program into schools. So there are a lot of struggles in terms of bringing these kind of programs to the schools because of funding. But I also have Christoph, I've got Pramod, that's also on one of our participants, who's actually part of the Foundation for Environmental Education, and he can also speak a little bit more about some of the other countries and what they do, particularly with forest education. So Pramod, sorry for putting you on the spot. If you can also engage with us.
Is he there?
Pramod, are you there? Anyway, okay, if he's not there, that's absolutely fine, Christoph.
Okay. Thank you very much, Cindy, for this contribution. Because what we have a big discussion at the moment where it's all about bringing the regular curricula to the outside space in the forest, so that you can teach math or you can teach language or something in the forest, so that you have the forest as a classroom, but with the usual topics that you were teaching in different classes, so that you can you can adopt some of these questions towards forest, but you're basically using it as a classroom. And this was a big thing now during the pandemic, because inside classroom it's always difficult, you know, with all the aerosols and everything. So outside it's nice to be sort of in the forest and teach other topics rather than ours. But I mean, is that an option as well, to bring sort of the regular curricula to the forest additionally?
Let me jump in. Yes, it's definitely an option. I think it depends on the context of where your school is, and also in a way how looking at school management. I think I'll take the example of France. Basically, in France, primary school are in a way managed by the local municipalities. Secondary school, it's the next level of local government. If you're in a municipality or a town that's near a forest, and forestry is an important economic aspect of your area, clearly they will make the effort to make that connection with the forest. And I think we have to look at forest education as a potential basically whole school project, that it's not just for the science teacher, because that's usually the response you get when you get to a school. Oh yeah, I'm a forester, I work with forest education, and the principal usually sends you to the science teacher because forest equals science. No, I mean, you can talk about forest in math. I mean, how do you calculate the height of a tree when you're there? You know, it's those horrible math problems that we had to do when we were in primary school. You can talk about forest in literature courses. You can talk about forest in history or geography classes, in many classes. So you need to bring the teachers together. You need to have the teachers work as teams, multidisciplinary teams to look at forests. And then the other thing is that you can also use forests, especially in these times of with climate change, and trying to reduce the impact of climate change on schools. More and more schools are actually planting trees or bushes to prevent the sun from hitting the building and hitting up the because basically the problem is many of the schools that we have around the world are these big, either concrete or brick buildings, which just keep the heat in. Okay, if you're in a country where it gets cold in winter, it's nice. But if you're in somewhere where it's really hot, it doesn't help. I think it's also to this idea of having parents take the kids, but it's also involving the parents in these school community projects. That forests are part of, especially if you live near a forest. That's part of our life. That's part of what made our. In some cases, that's why some towns or villages are there, because of the forest.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think there are opportunities. I think the other thing is to also encourage teachers to actually bring in a forester into a classroom to talk about what is or work is, rather than just reading. You can always give a little sheet that says, if you want to become a forester, you have to get this degree, blah blah blah. It for a kid, it doesn't talk to them. Even for an adult, it's like, yeah, I can read it, but I actually have to experience it. So I think the thing is we need to jump the stage to actually. It doesn't always work in all schools, because some as Cindy was saying, a strict, rigid curriculum. No, you can't. The teacher has to know everything and has to teach it. They can't bring in somebody from the outside to explain it. We are pushing for schools to be more open, to collaborate more. The other thing is also to introduce kids to, in a way, the jobs related to forest. I mean, it can be things like woodworking, carpentry. It can be also sparking the interest by saying, skis, for example, skis in countries that with snow. I mean, skis used to be made out of wood. Now you use all kinds of new techniques for that. And also to look at the signification of trees, because in many countries, certain trees have particular significance, whether it's spiritual, religious, or medicinal, and that we need to know. I mean, in Europe, in the fall, there's so many times these ads that, especially at the pharmacy, telling you these are the right types of mushrooms that you should pick. Not just pick anything, or these berries. Some you can pick, they'll be good. Others they're not. So I think we need to be more fun and creative in how we deal with "quote unquote" forest education.
Thank you, Bernard. I just want to add at the end, we have a best practice example for Germany in one city, which I really like, is because the city forest actually was given to a school together with all the employees. So the employees of the city forest are now working in the school, and all the decisions which are carried out for the forest, how many trees to cut, which trees to plant, are made by the school pupils. So this is something, how to involve them really, really well into all these discussions. So we are about at the end. So I think we are opening up a last Slido question again. And which is, where are the gaps in primary and secondary forest education? And you can enter there for a word cloud your answers. For now, I would like to thank you all the panelists for their contribution to this session today. Really, thank you to the participants for being here this morning. I would like to thank the technical staff in the background for this fantastic technical support you gave me, and I really look forward to what comes out of the whole conference. I would like to remind you on the call to action Teresa was sharing with you earlier on the in the chat. Please have a look at this and contribute to this call to action from the conference. And we are really, really happy that you were all sharing this morning with us. I thank you as well. And I hope that we all see each other at another occasion, probably then directly in contact, not with via Zoom or another video system. And I hope that you all sort of made your contacts to the participants, and I have already several on my list, which I will get back to in the next weeks and to learn more about their interesting programs. So thank you very much for today, and we leave the Slido open, and you can add your things. And we some of the participants have to move earlier to another room. So thank you very much, and have a great day at the conference.